Paleontologists, of course, would object to the notion that extinctions and fossilization occurred during rapid catastrophes and that these catastrophes occurred recently. Among other things, this would destroy the basis for evolution, the gradual process of speciation. One objection they would raise is the undeniable fact that, with each new layer of fossils, there's a new set of life forms. As the old life forms disappear, new life forms appear. This is called the law of faunal succession. The objection is valid as far as the succession of life forms in the geologic column. The succession is real and needs to be addressed with a new means for the appearance of new life forms with each new layer of fossils. Before answering the question, we must first point out that the fossil record, contrary to the theory of evolution, contains no visible transitional forms. Each new fossil stratum shows fully developed life forms with no antecedents in the previous strata. Charles Darwin recognized this problem in his Origin of Species. There have been no transitional forms found since Darwin that resolve the issue, and none will likely be found. The geologic record is as it is, and no amount of theoretical posturing on the part of paleontologists can fill the gap, a point Velikovsky made in his follow-up work, Earth in Upheaval. The reality is that the fossil record clearly attests to repeated catastrophic revolutions in the geosphere and biosphere. Swedish botanist and geneticist Niels Herbert Nielsen understood the meaning of the fossil record and provided an accurate assessment of its import. That leaves us with a very important question. If the new organisms in the fossil record did not descend from previous life forms, but suddenly emerge as if from nowhere, what is their origin? Where did they come from? Velikovsky attempted to save evolution by making it catastrophic instead of a gradual process. In this way, compressed times and the absence of transitional forms no longer inhibit a viable theory. The mechanism from this form of instantaneous biological transformation is radiation from interplanetary electrical discharges striking genetic material, causing mutations. Given the massive scale of the catastrophes, numerous new species would be created. He called this theory of evolutionary change cataclysmic evolution. Unfortunately for Velikovsky's theory, no monstrosities or anomalies have been found in the fossil record. Paleontologists do recognize the problem of the absence of transitional forms and the apparent suddenness of both extinction and the rise of new species. Some have tried to modify Darwin's theory to allow for a more rapid form of evolution. Paleontologists Niles Eldredge and Stephen Jay Gould proposed one such theory, which they called punctuated equilibrium. Though the rapidity of change has been accelerated under punctuated equilibrium, the theory still requires tens of thousands and millions of years. Life forms remain unchanged for millions of years, and the sudden evolutionary changes occur over 50 to 100,000 years. This is not the cataclysmic evolution of Velikovsky. Paleontologists continue to debate the pace of evolution, gradual or punctuated with rapid changes. But no current theory truly accounts for the lack of transitional forms and the apparent explosion of new life forms with each layer of the fossil record. Nor are there any adequate theories for the mass extinctions and their direct connection to the rise of new species. While science may be at a loss to explain the fossil record, early LDS leaders are not. They knew exactly what happened. Furthermore, the scriptures, when properly understood, provide clear answers to these questions. If the new forms reflected in the fossil record did not arise from previous life forms, then that leaves only two other possibilities: spontaneous generation or transplantation from the outside. Spontaneous generation, also known as abiogenesis, has been proposed but is generally rejected in favor of biogenesis, the theory that life only comes from life. But science has universally rejected spontaneous generation due to experiments of Louis Pasteur and others. Joseph Smith repeatedly taught that biogenesis is the only way that new life is created. Since biogenesis requires a progenitor, and the progenitors of new life forms were not those which preceded them in the fossil record, then the progenitors must have lived outside of Earth, that is, on other planets. This leaves us with only one possible explanation for the fossil record: the transplantation of new life forms from other planets. The scriptures and the statements of the early brethren are filled with the principle of biogenesis and the transplantation of life from other planets. Both principles are the foundation of the creation of the world, where the first life to arise on earth, including man, was brought from another planet by the Creator gods. Brigham Young taught these things openly to the early saints. According to President Young, Adam and those that assisted him brought seeds of every plant and herb from another planet and planted them on earth as would a gardener. Brigham likely learned these principles from Joseph Smith, but his text is directly from the Bible. The Bible clearly teaches that life was brought from another world and planted and placed on the earth. The Genesis account states that the plant life of the Garden of Eden was planted. Plant life was created elsewhere before being planted on the earth. The version of this account in the book of Abraham is more explicit. After the council of the gods, where the creation was planned, the gods prepared the earth for receiving plant life. The gods prepared the earth as we would prepare a garden and then planted seeds and saplings. The temple account also tells the story of a divine planting of seeds. The seeds can produce only after their own kind, meaning that no new life forms can be created from them. Animal life was transplanted as well. Adult animals were brought to earth and placed on it. Plants and animals were not the only living beings brought to this planet from another. Man and woman were brought here as well, as Brigham Young openly taught. According to President Young, Adam oversaw the transport of life, vegetable and animal, to Earth, and when finished, remained here with his wife. Genesis records that Adam was put in the Garden of Eden, meaning that he was taken from somewhere else and then put in the garden. The book of Moses tells the same story. Biblical scholars understand the import of the putting or placing of Adam and Eve, that it means that the original parents were taken from one place to another. But invariably, scholars focus on the destination, the garden, without further comment on the place of origin. The endowment version of the creation makes clear that Adam and Eve were not only placed in the garden, but also on earth. This removes any possible explanation that the couple were first created on the earth and then moved to the garden. In fact, both were created before the earth was made, since Adam was one of the creators of the planet. The creation was only the first in a series of plantings, or, more accurately, transplantings from another world to our Earth. The planetary catastrophes first destroyed much of life on Earth, and then were followed by the introduction of new life forms. LDS historian and scientist B.H. Roberts believed the repeated catastrophes and transplantations accounted for the strata of the geologic column. Of course, it was more than changed conditions that caused the extinctions. The planetary destructions caused most of the damage, but changed conditions did contribute. As are all things related to this Earth and life thereon, the catastrophes, extinctions, and restocking the planet with new life are not random events. They are purposeful. Strange as it may seem, there is good reason for killing off one set of animals and replacing them with an entirely different set, and doing so repeatedly. In a previous video series, we discussed the gospel principle of the eternal felicity of animals. Animals, like man, have their own plan of salvation, whereby they can earn eternal felicity in like manner to man earning eternal salvation. This principle was exemplified by the four beasts described by John in his Apocalypse. According to the Savior, who was the author of the Revelation, the four beasts represent classes of beings enjoying their eternal felicity. These beasts earned their felicity through filling the measure of their creation and obeying the law given to them, just as the earth itself. As man is given commandments, so are animals and vegetation. Joy is earned by obedience to the commandments given them. For any form of life to come to Earth and experience mortality, the Earth must provide specific conditions that support its viability. The Temple Endowment called this requirement respective elements. Element, as used by the endowment, refers to a natural habitat or environment. Habitat, in its scientific sense, refers to an environmental area conducive to particular species. A habitat is defined by unique sets of physical factors that allow certain species to thrive. Every life form needs a habitat to survive and thrive. Some species are more adaptive than others and can survive outside the normal sphere of their preferred habitat. Other species must live in their own habitat and cannot survive under any other conditions. According to the Book of Abraham, during the creation, the gods organized the earth to bring forth plant life. The gods also organized the earth for the habitation of animals. The gods organized the earth in such a way that the grass, herb, tree, beast, cattle, and creeping thing would successfully reproduce. In scientific terms, the gods created specific habitats for all species they placed upon the earth. In doing so, the gods were following a plan and process that has been used throughout the eternities. The gods did not place upon earth every life form that exists in the universe. Joseph Smith claimed that John saw all manner of life forms in his vision, many of which man does not have the slightest conception. There are simply too many species in the universe to fit on an Earth at one time. Moreover, the Earth is too small to organize the habitats necessary to support these life forms. Yet, the plan of salvation for beasts requires that all life must experience mortality in order to have a chance to gain eternal felicity. The gospel of Jesus Christ is not selective, preferring to save some animals while rejecting others. If all species must be given the chance at mortality but cannot fit on Earth at the same time, then there must be a mechanism to bridge this gap. In order for a life form to have a chance for mortality on Earth, it must have room to live and a habitat to thrive. If there is no room available due to the fact that the Earth has been filled with other life forms, then room has to be made available by removing those life forms. Furthermore, new habitats must be created for the new species, tailored to their physical requirements. The Earth must be reorganized. Major planetary catastrophes perform numerous functions as part of the gospel of Jesus Christ. At their very heart, the catastrophes are acts of vengeance upon the wicked and chastisements of the Lord's people. At the same time, the pestilences, plagues, and devouring fire kill entire orders of life and rearrange the conditions on Earth. The Earth is radically changed and readied for new forms of life. These new species are then commanded to fill the Earth like their earlier counterparts.